Hello everyone, I'm Jamil Velasquez from Practice Real. In the previous video, we talked about the two programs that we've managed to put together here in Practice Real. So that was the Study Club and the Practice Club. Rundown of the different highlights and most important things about both of the programs. In this video, we're going to focus on the Practice Club. So we're going to talk about four things. The goal of this program, the approach we used to achieve this goal, the foundation for this program, and finally some conclusions we drew from the first experience we had last year. Before we dive into this video, I would like to quote a small part of the CEFR, Common European Frame of Reference for English in this case. I think was very inspiring. The most important thing that a teacher can do is to provide the richest possible linguistic environment in which learning can take place without formal teaching. That summarizes very well what my intention with teaching the language is. Basically, more than teaching, it's just generating those spaces and those environments that are rich in opportunities for the learners to interact with the language in a more conscious, in a more approachable way with tools and strategies. So for the goal, this is quite, this took me a while to put together because I was trying to reason how to put this into words. So let's see how it goes. The goal we have in this program is to recreate some of the scenarios the learner would encounter in the real world while providing tools and strategies to encourage the learner to try or to explore different responses in the interactions that take place in these scenarios. Whoa, that was a mouthful. So let's see if I can put it in more simpler words and maybe more concise. I would say that what we intend to do with this program is to offer a scenario where the learner can actually interact with, first of all, a native speaker. And the native speaker would have something prepared in the sense of, there's a topic and there's a task to accomplish, meaning in this case, a presentation on a topic, and the learner would have to understand that presentation. The presentation would be delivered, of course, by the native speaker, and the native speaker does not have a script, so he would be speaking as he or she finds it best to get the message across. And the learner can actually make use of different strategies such as questions, ask for repetition, things like that to understand what the presenter is telling them. And the scenario would be, this presentation would be about a topic that's real in the sense that it's based on something that's real, or maybe real world scenarios. We will be kind of like segmenting that presentation to like taking pauses or breaks for questions like they would actually in the real world. But here I'll be present to assist with maybe guidance if needed, of questions, to clarify things if that's ever needed. But the native speaker and the learner will be the protagonist of this, the scenario and the interaction. Onto the approach. Right now, I'm going to start by speaking about the gap in the market that we saw for this program. Talking about practice or ways of practicing the language. When you first learn a language, structure, expression, and vocabulary, they will give you practice kind of like fill in the gaps, for example. So there's a paper sheet and you have to read through a conversation, and there's going to be gaps, and you're going to have to fill in those gaps with the word will very likely be the word that you just learned, or the words that you just learned, so that you can practice. Or a conversation where the tense and the vocab that you just learned is going to be used. So they would expect you to use that segment of the language, if you would, to just to practice it. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is a very, very free way of practicing the language. For example, a conversation club. The conversation club, or the people in the conversation club and the activities, they would not expect you to use a specific type of segment of the language, specific structure, words, or vocabulary. They would expect you to be able to interact and to kind of have a conversation, essentially. The thing is, we felt that neither of these two spaces, a way of practicing the language, although very important, they don't offer a way for the learner to explore and to exploit all the resources this learner has. It's a more complex task than it sounds, actually, to exploit all of your resources in the language, because sometimes we have a lot of passive language that we don't use but we understand. So in this approach we will be using three things essentially. Roles, for example, the native speaker will be presenting, you will be listening as part of an audience, and your task will be, or your goal will be, to understand that presentation. Authentic language, so the presenter, like I previously said, does not have a script. They will be speaking as they see fit to get the message across. And the scenarios, I mean, there's going to be course based on the real world and the real life scenarios. So these three things plus the strategies, saying you're allowed to ask questions whenever you see fit. You can just write the questions down. You can ask for clarifications. Your presenter will be there to kind of answer every one of the things and repeat as needed. And then those kind of things would offer the opportunity for the learner to exploit the resources. And we would be scaling, progressing the exercise to a point where the learner really has to make use of all of those resources, vocab structures, things they already know because they learned them, or they've been learning them throughout all of the time they've been in the process of learning the language. We decided to call that guided practice just because we will be guiding the practice in the sense that we won't make it too challenging, but we won't make it too easy, so that the learner does not make an effort to kind of speak more and communicate more. So that's basically the name came for that. I'm not sure if that name already exists, and if it is a method, it might be, but the program is using that as the backbone for the whole methodology. The foundation for this program is a lot of the descriptors that you find in the CEFR, Common European Framework Reference, which is a very big book actually. It's for English that the European Union has put together, and is actually super useful. And then we have been going over some of the chapters, and we took some things from that to actually use it to kind of give a structure, to lay out the structure for this program. So the program has essentially the exercises for this practice club has 4 parts. So this exercise, the Saturday exercises, when you are with the native speakers, has 4 parts. Listening to a presentation as a member of a live audience. Formal discussion in meetings. This gives the place for a debate. Debate can take place there. Goal-oriented cooperation will be the third one. A fourth one would be sustained monologue. Okay, so listening to the presentation, basically you have a task for this. The task would be, or the goal will be to understand the problem. They will be talking to you and walking you through a presentation with the intention of presenting a problem to you and giving you 3 alternatives for you to explore later on in the exercise. This task has the possibility for you to ask questions, to request repetitions and clarifications. This is something you can do all throughout the exercise. The second part will be formal discussion and meetings. So what happens is, once that presentation ends, then the native speaker would go away from the table to give us, and I say give us because I will be there with the learners, to give us some space to go through the alternatives and kind of debate, our positions, talk about our positions as to what best alternative to give a solution to this problem is. Each learner would have to say what they think and pick one alternative and say why they think this is the best alternative to the rest of the group, and then I will be there to kind of assist with some of the words, and whenever it's not clear to me, just to ask for clarification and kind of assist the learner with maybe a better way to say things or suggest options on the spot. But basically I will be guiding them through this process and asking their opinions on things. Third activity will be goal-oriented cooperation. We're gonna all be together again. If there is more than 5 people, say 8 people or 10 people, then we're going to come together as a big group, and then everyone is going to take positions and say, I'm for alternative 1, I'm for 2, and I'm for 3, and then we're going to try to work together to get to one alternative and to kind of convince the people, or convince the rest of the people that there's one alternative that we can choose, and that actually demands a lot of debating. So you're going to have to be kind of debating with the rest of the group to find the solution, which is the goal for this part of the exercise. The fourth part, sustained monologue. So that will be to give a solution to the whole thing, but give a solution and communicate the solution to the native speaker. So the native speaker playing the role of the client, because we will be like a consultation firm. Listen to that problem. It's a business problem. So he will come to us, and then we will all say, like, give the reasons and kind of give the solution. This native speaker has as a task to ask a lot of questions, trying to really clarify and to see why the other alternatives are not good. So yeah, I bet you can see how you're going to have to explain yourself a lot, which means you're going to have to be speaking a lot. And then you have to be understanding, interacting a lot, which is the main essence and goal of this program. Okay, so next to this, I want to say that the topics that we chose for this past exercise was a music business. So it was in the music business. So this first native speaker talked about his band, and they had a problem with our recording company that over royalties and the contract. So basically they go over this presentation, and then again they offer 3 alternatives, and then they would have the learners had to debate and to stand the reasons on why they would go for one alternative, and then communicate this to the presenter or native speaker. And the second one was the restaurant business, same structure, and then hotel business, and then the last one was a surprise that we have for the learner. So again, all of these was to get them to, like engage with different type of vocabulary and engage in debate and discussion and speaking and interaction. I also want to clear something out, and is some learners say that how real is it? How real are the native speakers, in the sense that are they really speaking how they usually speak, or are they actually speaking at a lower level, kind of get themselves understood by the learners? Yeah, there is a theory called communication accommodation theory, which essentially says that the speaker usually adapts to the listener. So when the listener, in this case, has maybe a lower level of proficiency in the language than the speaker would actually find the words to communicate to the learner. All of this to say that the speaker might not be using as many idioms, expressions, or phrasal verbs, or colloquial language as they would with friends and family, but they will be using their own words. They will be trying to communicate with the learner, and if in using the language and communicating with the learner, in the first instance the learner understands, and there is no need for rephrasing things, which is, it happens and it's fine, but if there's no need, of course the learner, or the language that the learner will be listening to, it's going to be a very, very authentic and very, very real level of language that the native speaker usually uses. And then to finish, the schedule will be, it's usually 3 hours, between 2 to 3 hours of exercise to go through these 4 spaces, like the problem, explore solutions, debate, and then consultation or give the solution. The conclusions that we drew from this exercise, I think it was great. It was a very, very good, a very, very positive balance that we got at the end of the exercise, because there was real exposure to authentic language, to a language that actually is real. It's not manipulated, it's not scripted. So the learner understood and was actually seeing the native speakers speak their own words. And then the fluency and confidence learner would build up throughout the month that this whole program lasted. It was great. Many of them, they said that they actually saw that their confidence boosted and the fluency was better as a result of all of those hours exposed to the language and exposed to the interaction and having to interact in the language. So that was very good. And then there was, of course, to a certain extent, because the goal of this program is not to teach, just to practice, but there were new words that the learners would pick up, new expressions, new structures. That was a side effect of the whole program, which was also a good effect and a good thing. Thank you very much.